What's going on, Legionnaires, and welcome back to Comic Breakdown. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that sub button and hit that notification bell. Make sure you're not missing any of the content that we have coming out. Now, I am finally back in Texas. I'm all set up. I got my internet finally hooked back up, and we're going to start covering all the lines that we have missed so far. But we're going to kick this off with Infinite Frontier, the newest beginning to the DC Universe. Now, if you don't know what Infinite Frontier is exactly, go ahead and check out the link in my description. You can check out Dark Knight's Death Metal, you can check out Future State, all the things leading up to exactly where we are right now. Now, before we dive into this issue, Infinite Frontier, it has a lot going into it. We have writers like Joshua Williamson, James Tynion, and Scott Snyder. All these individuals building the framework for Infinite Frontier and what's going to be coming next in the DC Universe. Now, this issue, it kind of rushes through a lot of stories, but it's really giving us the beginning of a lot of events. So with that being said, let's dive into this issue. Alright guys, so jumping into the first issue. Issue number 0. We pick up at the beginning of a rebirth. A new destiny unwritten in the Book of Oa. And a group believes that Wonder Woman is the next one. Because if not Wonder Woman, then who else would be worthy of joining the Quintessence? And that's exactly what we see here. We see the Quintessence appear in front of Wonder Woman, and they offer her a spot on their council. And as Wonder Woman looks at this new Infinite Frontier, they let her know, where there once stood 52 universes walled off from the greater Omniverse, there are now countless universes, and they can sense no boundaries. And this is where the Spectre tells Wonder Woman, the hands of the Source have judged you the pinnacle of human potential. And now they've elevated you to a higher plane of existence. And so the Quintessence, now being her peers, they are the highest order of being in all the multiverse. And now they ask for Wonder Woman to watch over reality with them. And Wonder Woman's response to this offer is simply, I'm flattered. Like, that's awesome, that's great, but the issue is, I was warned of a great cost for restarting the multiverse, of a lurking threat that she needs to protect the multiverse from. And this is when the Quintessence tell her they know nothing of this cost. And Diana tells them, I can't just leave my friends and family without knowing the full potential or the truth of the aftermath of what lies ahead of all of my friends and family. And they continue to tell her, like, we sense no great cost. And so Spectre decides to take her along the timeline and show her and kind of give her some kind of reassurance that there's not going to be some great cost if she joins the Quintessence. And so the truth in her heart will lead the way, and the journey begins with an old friend. That old friend being none other than Superman himself. And Superman arriving to try to help some people, to try to save the day, only to realize that somebody was already there. A gentleman with lightning on his chest. None other than Black Adam himself. And the local people calling him Shazam, which I think is about the worst name literally possible. But the people let Superman know that the Black Adam was here to save people. He came in, saved the day like Superman, and then he was gone. And the Flash arrives, only for them to discuss how this was actually Black Adam and he's not doing villain stuff. And this is where Superman hopes. He hopes that maybe, finally, Black Adam is doing good, is doing the right thing. Leave it to Kal-El to see potential for good in his enemies. An ability that Batman has never shared. And this is where we pick up in Gotham City, at Arkham Asylum. And this is where we see a guard by the name of Mahoney. And as he's making his last routine checks, he goes in to check on Bane, only to see that there is a toxic gas in the air. And Bane chained up, thinking that he took out the guards, ripping Bane's mask off, only to see the Joker. And this is when he initiates a code green and lets everybody know that there's a Joker toxin attack going on and Bane is dead. But it's too late for these guys. It's already kicked off. It's already begun. And this is where we pick up with Oracle, with Steph, with Babs, with Huntress. We're essentially seeing the birds of prey being formed here. And Oracle talking about how she's going to be taking a more desk stance and giving her Spinal Tap some kind of time to relax and not necessarily put that strain on it 24/7. And this is where she realizes they have a code green. And we pick up and we see Jace and Lucius Fox met by the arrival of Grifter, and Grifter letting them know that there's a code green and that it's time to get them out of there right now. And then we see the mayor trying to discuss what the best course of action is. And Mahoney running through, seeing all of his guards knocked out, taken out. Batman lets him know that he is on the way. And this is when Diana gets pulled to yet another timeline. And this is where we see her in Themyscira, her mother mourning the loss of Diana, only for her to go outside to see Nubia and some of the other Amazons fighting about who is going to be the next Wonder Woman. And so this is when the Queen of the Amazons decides to put them to the trial, asking who among them will risk joining her daughter in the eternal silence to prove that they are worthy to carry the mantle of Wonder Woman. And they all say that they are willing to do so. And so she brings the three and she tells them, as she holds a box, that this box holds the head of Medusa. And only those whose heart is just, whose mind is not clouded by ambition, will be able to stare at Medusa without turning to stone. And so the queen asks, which of you will be the first? And almost immediately, two of the Amazons leave. And Nubia calls them cowards. But they're not cowards. They're smart to turn this down. It will literally turn you to stone if you're not 100% about this. But Nubia, being who she is, takes the risk. And she opens the box, only to find a tiara crown. And the queen letting her know that the Amazons need a queen. And that she must rule Themyscira in her stead. Because she is going to go find out all of this business about Yara Flor and who exactly she is. And then this is when we see Yara Flor at an airport about ready to make travel to Brazil for the first time, only to have some shady individuals waiting for her, calling her a target. And so this is really just laying the groundwork for who Yara Flor is, where she comes from, you know, why she was chosen, and it also lets us know Nubia's place in all of this. And then we pick up in New York City, at a timeline the Spectre is very familiar with, because this is the timeline of the Justice Society of America, his once former team, once forced to be disbanded, forced into retirement, eventually becoming members of Infinity. But then we get a great moment. We get a great moment between Alan Scott and his children, and he lets them know. He lets them know that he's walked this earth for such a long time, much longer than should have been allotted. He's been fighting, doing his duty, using the ring and all of its incredible powers to serve. That he neglected a lot of himself. And he lets his children know, like, this isn't about you, but it's more than that. And he lets his children know, back in an earlier time, he kept a part of himself hidden from his friends and family. He even let himself get married a few times to women he did love with all of his mind. But he did that knowing there was something about himself he was hiding away. And so he says the words to his children, letting them know that Alan Scott is gay. And his daughter embraces him. Both her and Todd make him feel loved. You know, Alan Scott had told a few individuals back in the day, but this is something he relatively kept secret. And it honestly makes sense. You know, an early days Alan Scott would never come forward in the time era that he lived in. It just wouldn't happen. But an Alan Scott old man, we could definitely see him coming out of the closet. Regardless of how you feel about his sexuality, you know, this is the course of action, the decision, and the direction that they decided to go with this. And it does make sense. There are many old individuals, or older individuals, I should say, that have to deal with this. That have had to deal with the discrimination of being gay in a time era where people treated you like you were less than human. And now Alan Scott, in a more modern time era, can actually be open and honest with who he is, with himself, and with those he loves. And so to me, that is one of the most important things to take away from this story. And then we're swept away again, and we're taken to some children, and all of them getting ready for what's about to come, because they're getting ready for school, and they all have awesome little backpacks with the Teen Titans symbol on it, and this is when they show up in front of the Teen Titans headquarters, and we see an individual putting the red X mask in his backpack. And this is going to be picking up and beginning with our Teen Titans Academy, which we will be covering on this page as well as pretty much everything that comes to Infinite Frontier. And then we pick up in Metropolis and we see Jonathan Kent, and he's battling an Imperial Mao. But Spectre warns of this Superman, because Jonathan Kent, according to the Spectre, is not Superman and must never be Superman. And we watch as Jonathan Kent battles this Mao, but really we're seeing Spectre say how he's not up to the challenge. He's not strong enough. He's not fast enough. He doesn't have the skills. He doesn't have the technical know-how. He may have been gifted with his father's physical gifts, but that will never make him Superman, according to the Spectre. And Wonder Woman goes to his defense. Let's Spectre know, like, this is the son of the last Kryptonian. The son's gifts are beyond the physical, and if only he would look inward and see, like, his courage. He dives straight into this Mao, and though the Spectre believes this to be the end of him, it's not. And we see Superman trying to traverse time and space. Jonathan Kent has been tortured from the beginning, lost in space for years with a madman, imprisoned and tormented by a broken version of his own father. He came to age 1,000 years after his birth, and then returned here a full-grown man, given a title he could never earn. And so, according to the Spectre, this is the makings and the beginning of what he sees as a tyrant. But this is when we see Jonathan Kent making his way to the Imperial Mao as a little baby. Because like the Spectre said, the Imperial Mao is not of this plane. And so Jonathan Kent went to find what plane it was from. Found it when it was newly lost, alone and helpless, and then returned it to its rightful place. Others saw only wrath. He saw something that was afraid and that was grieving. And so out of compassion, he risked his own life for an enemy's sake. And so for at least for now, for the foreseeable future, Jonathan Kent earns the title of Superman, at least according to the Spectre. And so we continue through these timelines. We see Oliver and Black Canary meeting up and having a good time, enjoying each other's company, only for them to get a phone call and they miss it. But that phone call is from none other than freaking Roy Harper, back from the dead, and has no idea why. He knows he's back from the dead, and he doesn't know who to call. He's thinking about calling Dick, or maybe Donna, Jason. He doesn't know. Someone in the Teen Titans, maybe, because he's alive, and he has no idea why, but he knows he's here, and he wants to reconnect with his friends and family. And then we pick up with Stargirl, carrying the cosmic staff and member of the Justice Society of America, on her way to school, only to take down a bad guy on her way. The bad guy being King Midas himself, the man who can touch anything and it turns to gold. But the fight ends relatively quick because we see the arrival of Stripesy, one of my favorite comic book characters. Now Stripesy, Pat, used to roll with some guys named the Seven Soldiers of Victory, way back in the day. But now these two have teamed up together, and they've been taking on everything. But right now she's late for school, so she hightails it to get into school, only for Pat to get a phone call, letting him know that the soldiers, they need him. And this is when Stripesy tells Stargirl that phone call was a reason to ditch school. But this is when they're pulled back. They're pulled back to Batman at Arkham Asylum with Sean Mahoney, and he enters a protocol that will superheat the facility, vaporizing the toxin. But the issue is that there's two still 2 nurses inside that risk getting hurt. And so Batman is on his way. And they've been trying. All of our heroes, Jim Gordon, Red Hood, Nightwing, Catwoman, everybody has been working together to the best of their ability to save Gotham. Because at the end of the day, they're afraid to look the truth in the face. That the old ways aren't going to work like they used to. They're going to have to change, to evolve. And this is where we see Mahomes get these 2 nurses out of the facility before it explodes, only to end up missing an arm and a leg. And as Batman stands in front of Mahoney, the cops show up and tell Batman that he's under arrest. And the mayor says that it's their job to now get rid of masks, because masks are no more in Gotham City. And this is where we see Simon Saint. And Simon Saint is the one who created the Magistrate program. And he's talking to Scarecrow, asking if the people are scared enough yet to be able to take on the Magistrate's rule. And the Scarecrow lets them know that they're not scared enough yet, but they will be. And then we see hyperspace headed to Oa. And we have Simon and Jon Stewart taking their new Teen Titan Kelly to stand in front of the Guardians. Now this is new because a child has never really been given a ring. Now we have seen Green Lantern Legacy, where we saw Pham, a young Vietnamese kid, given a ring after his grandmother had passed away, but that was non-canon at the time. I don't know if it is now canon, but I really do hope that we get to see Pham later on as a teen Green Lantern. I think that would be absolutely phenomenal. And for those that don't like this story, just remember, the teen lanterns aren't necessarily meant for adults. While I'm sure the story will be great, just remember it's probably oriented towards kids and to try to bring the new generation into comic books. So before you get too upset about that, just remember that. Just remember there's another generation of children that we're trying to get into comic books so we can continue these great stories and make sure that people are still loving them and still buying them. Because at the end of the day, if people aren't buying comics, they're going to stop making them. And this is when Spectre and Diana head over to somebody else. Somebody that's one of my favorites, and it's none other than Barry Allen himself, hanging out at the House of Heroes within the multiverse at the Totality. And Barry has been running to check all the cosmic vibrational frequencies. And he's letting President Superman know that Earth-Zero looks stable. And so it appears most of the worlds have been returned after being destroyed. But a few of these have had their histories restarted. But with this work that they're doing, they'll be able to keep track of the growing multiverse with joint communication between the worlds. And President Superman had offered something to Barry Allen. But first there's something he has to take care of. And this is when we see the arrival of Wally West. And Wally asks, what offer is Superman offering you? And Barry tells him, this is what I wanted to talk to you about. He's been working for Justice Incarnate, observing the formation of the new multiverse. This makes sense. Of course he is. He was the first one to ever travel to another Earth. And now we're in a time era where now we have 2 mysterious new sources of energy in the multiverse, both that are opposites of each other. One of them being called the Elseworlds, and the other Earth Omega. And Earth Omega, its readings are vastly different than any other world that they've seen in the multiverse. So with all this new information, Barry tells himself it's time for a change. One that feels right. And so he's been offered a place in Justice Incarnate to be Earth's representative, to explore this new multiverse and to map it. And this is when Wally asks him, what about Central City? What about all your responsibilities to the people on the Earth that you're from? And this is when he tells Wally West that he wants him to now be the new Flash. And god freaking dang it, I am excited. I have been waiting for Wally West to finally take over the mantle as the Flash, and this is so well deserved. Barry even tells him himself, after everything that you've been through, you deserve this, Wally West. You finally are at a place where you can sit down and you can enjoy life and truly be the hero that you want to be. And so I think this does away with any kind of rumors that Wally West is retiring, and if anything, this is reaffirming that Wally West is going to be sticking around, and he's going to be sticking around as the Flash himself. picking up the mantle of one of the most powerful individuals in the entire multiverse. And it's almost heart-wrenching because Barry Allen even calls him son and tells Wally, like, I know you have this. I wouldn't go racing all around the multiverse if I didn't know in my heart that you were up to the task. And so he lets him know that Jay Garrick is lighting up the grill and that he's gonna race him back to Central City. And this is where they take off. And so the torch has been passed. And so as Spectre and Wonder Woman walk through the timeline, observing everything that's happening, looking for this great threat that she's fearing. But Wonder Woman says she's seen enough. She's not seeing any kind of threat that could come to them or that she's worried about. So she says, take me back to the Quintessence. And she does. She goes back to the Quintessence, letting them know that she's satisfied with everything that she saw. And they ask if she will join them. And she lets them know, like, my friends and family can brave the journey ahead without me. I have faith they can take care of themselves. But don't misunderstand me, but I'm declining your offer. You know, everything that I just saw with the Spectre, you're telling me that anything is possible. And that you want me to just stay here with you guys and just watch everything? Like, you showed me so many brave individuals embracing the change ahead of them, and it reminds me of when Steve was washed up on the shores of Themyscira and we had to embrace the change of a new world, a new chapter. And now she finds herself on a different shore, and it's time that she sets sails into the infinite frontier. And then we get an epilogue of the Quintessence, talking about how Wonder Woman was supposed to be the one to join them. But they still believe this. They still believe that Wonder Woman is the one. You know, as Wonder Woman said, their new multiverse is full of goodness, but there will always be horror brewing just out of reach. And that they should have told her that they already trapped the threat that she was worried about. And if she had joined them, Wonder Woman would have seen there is nothing that they can't control or defeat. And this is where we find out that whatever this threat is, they've locked away on Earth Omega to be its prison, a place of endings, a place where even gods can die. But in this same instance, we see the Quintessence stabbed through the back by some kind of shadow figure. And whoever this individual is, letting them know that all stories always lead to him. The last chapter. He stood by as beings like the Quintessence made him lesser than he was meant to be. Now reconstituted from his lesser forms, all his past aspects have become one. His true form. His power exceeds what it was before the first crisis. And it's time for the lower beings of creation to remember why they fear the darkest hours and the deepest moments of despair. The multiverse is now infinite, but now so is Darkseid. And that will be the end of this issue. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Personally, Infinite Frontier has been everything I expected it to be. It's an amazing story. It's introducing us to everything that we read in Future State, and we're reading that this is all a possible future, but it's not necessarily the outcome that we're going to see. And so, whatever our heroes have to do to change and deter this future from happening, I'm sure that Wonder Woman is going to be helping them do that. You know, we saw a lot of awesome stuff in this comic. From the Green Lanterns, to the beginning of the Magistrate, to seeing Roy Harper still alive. There was so much that happened in this. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I personally have fell in love with this issue. I am really excited to see what they have in store for us. I'm really excited about the Flash line. But yeah, be sure to check into the channel later. We'll be covering Infinite Frontier, the Swamp Thing, Suicide Squad, and possibly the Crime Syndicate. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video as usual, and until the next issue.